Rin from Hallowed Be Thy Game, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my tips and tricks for Tales of Arise. Let's check it out. Tales of Arise is my current favorite game of 2021. It was such a blast going through with my initial playthrough, and I'm so excited to be diving into New Game Plus and harder difficulties. Here are my tips and tricks for what I found throughout my normal run of the game that I wish I knew before I started. Number 10. First off, I think the absolute most important thing to remember is that you should never sell your weapons. Old armor and some resources are okay to sell. However, later in the game, you're going to be given the option to craft better weapons that will use your previous weapons as a resource for. These will essentially be empowered versions of your previous weapons, so it's always going to be worth keeping up to date with your gear. Now, to springboard off of weapons, it can be worth noting the elemental affinity that some weapons have. So if you are fighting a bunch of ice wolves that are weak to fire, then it's going to be worth equipping a weapon that has a fire element attached to it. Also, fire is going to be ice, ice is going to be fire, earth is going to be wind, wind's going to be earth, and then also you have light beating dark and dark beating light. Now for a normal run of the game, this type of min-maxing isn't really required, but it'll definitely make your life easier and help you if you're wanting to go to the harder difficulties. Number 9. Now that you've crafted your brand new weapon and you're out slaying Zoogles, you're going to begin to notice that you're going to acquire a battle chain bonus. This is a modifier that will help increase the experience and SP you obtain from battles. So it's always going to be worth setting a nice pace when you are in a big zone so that you can keep up your bonus. Now, if you can get this up to a 5 stack, then the time you'll have to keep the buff up will be greatly reduced. However, it's going to be giving you a sizable boost to your XP and SP, and honestly, I found this to be invaluable in new areas. For me, when I got to a new zone, I would just ignore all the collectibles in the area until I cleared all the zone and got my battle chain bonus up. But you can carry this buff between zones, so if you think you can keep up with collecting all the items and transfer zones, then you're going to have a really nice battle chain going for a long time. Number 8. I love the cast of characters in Tales of Arise, and I also love the skits that you can have by the bonfire that enable me to grow closer to each party member. Now, this may be listed easily for people to know, but I personally was confused by what exactly was enabling a new relationship conversation to take place between the party. Well, when I was finally in the post-game, I found out that it's just literally in-game time that needs to pass by before another conversation can happen. It appears to be roughly 30 minutes to an hour before you can have another friendship dialogue option occur. Over my normal playthrough and post-game content, I was able to eventually get everyone up to max to get those awesome skits and achievements, so no need to worry about delving into New Game Plus just to get this achievement, because you're able to get everyone in a single playthrough to max. It is nice because there are titles or talent trees that are tied to their friendship with Alphen, so definitely enjoy them and have fun getting to know your party more. Number 7. Fishing in Tales of Arise is a ton of fun, as it is in most every JRPG. So I just want to give an encapsulated guide on all the ins and outs of fishing that I found. Now, you're going to have a lure and fishing bait. The lure is just going to make fish overall easier to catch. And if you're level 40, make sure you do Kisara's advanced training ground for the second best lure in the game. Now, each time you visit a new fishing hole, give a quick glance at the fishing bait that you have. On PlayStation, this will be hitting triangle. With this, you can see in the bottom right hand of the screen what fish are available and the button combo you need to press to draw them in. Having trouble still catching the fish you want? Well, check the bait you have, as it will tell you what fish it specializes in catching. Now, there are times early on in fishing where I had something similar to the fish I needed, but not the identical lure I needed to catch it. Example being, I wanted to catch a bass, but I didn't have the right bait for that exact bass. I mean, what a turd. Bait can be obtained from the master fisherman by catching more fish, and then you just go back to the third realm and talk to the master fisherman. Every couple of fish you catch, he will give you various prizes such as fishing bait and even fishing lures. It's really a fun system, and even though it is a quick time event, it's a lot of fun and a great way to farm money early on in the game, which is another tip. Definitely utilize this if you're in need of more gold. Definitely a must for making your first playthrough easier. It'll also lead you to new areas and super bosses in the post game. Number 6. Now, in addition to fishing spots, you're going to want to collect everything as you go. There's a ton of subquests in Tales of Arise, and a lot of the time, you can instantly complete them if you are collecting everything as you go. This seems rather obvious, but it is important to remember that mining nodes are especially useful as the stats that are available to be crafted are randomly generated when you're crafting your accessories. Now, the reason you want to have a massive stockpile of ore is so that you can, for one, craft better accessories later on, but also to be able to have a large pool of resources to use to enhance the accessory you want. Accessories in the late game and post game are invaluable and can be used to make some god tier builds. So making sure you are enhancing and transferring skills will make your super boss clears a lot easier. But it also requires a lot of resources. A lot of sites are always going to say, don't worry about this till later in the game, but I'm going to be honest, I was gathering so much that I had little to no problem slapping together a decent accessory for every realm I was visiting. Here's another one that seems kind of obvious, but I cannot stress it enough. Explore everything. The best armor can be found in the zones, but they are often tucked away in side routes. So explore every nook and cranny. You're going to find invaluable resources and armor, which will in turn save you from having to buy armor and items such as CP recovery gels, which are your life force. They can be pretty expensive, so anything you can do to help alleviate that burden is very nice. Number 4. Now, one aspect that I think can be kinda confusing for newer players to Tales of Arise is the artifact system. This can be found from the main menu, and you can enable or disable these artifacts, which offer incredible passive bonuses. Now, if you've bought the DLC, this is also where you're going to be able to turn on or off these options. Most of these can be obtained from just doing the main story or side quests. However, some of these are going to be obtained in off the beaten path areas. One I want to highly suggest is the Reckless Abandon artifact. You can get this from completing Dolhalim's advanced training in the third realm, so be sure once you get to the third realm's major city, check out the training grounds. It's great. I don't play Dolhalim very often, but this is one that wasn't bad at all to complete at the level it's given, which is level 40. This offers a 100% buff to damage dealt and received. This may border on a more intermediate tip, but I personally found that the positives outweighed the negatives in my experience. Obviously, if you find that the damage you're receiving doesn't outweigh the benefits, then hey, I understand, but I personally found it helped me to be able to punish super bosses harder and more often than it hurt me. Number 3. Another combat tip I want to give, and this is one you can utilize from the very start of the game, and that is that you can use the boost attack on your playable character as a way of ignoring incoming damage. There were times where I thought a boss was about to hit me with a big nasty ability that I turned into an opportunity to use Alphen's boost attack to not only ignore the hit, but also stagger the boss in return. It's important to note that bosses cannot be broken, but they can be staggered. What I mean by this is that you're never going to be able to juggle a boss in the air with your abilities. Now, there are a few bosses that have a core or a weak point that's not on the ground, so you're going to have to jump to be able to hit their weak spot. So it's always worth utilizing your aerial arts as well, but just be mindful that you're never going to be able to juggle a lord from a realm. Number 2. Now, your party's AI is usually not that bad at all, especially in a normal run of the game. When I was fighting the secret super boss, that was the only time I really felt the need to change them from just acting on their own as the baseline option to prioritize healing. I got through it no problem after I changed that. Essentially what I'm saying is that customizing your party's AI is great, but it's not something that I think the average gamer is going to need to worry about in a normal run of the game. However, as I'm delving deeper into New Game Plus and harder difficulties, I'll be sure to report back on any findings I have. Number 1. Lastly, I want to go ahead and explain Mystic Arts. What I've gathered from talking with friends and other people about Mystic Arts is that you either have no idea how it works and just randomly pulling off a Mystic Art every once in a while, or you're really baffled about what all the confusion is about Mystic Arts. Mystic Arts are essentially super moves you can only pull off while in an over-limit state. This empowered state is triggered by performing multiple perfect dodges, taking a lot of damage, or even dealing a lot of damage. When you're in this state, you'll eventually have access to 2 Mystic Arts. The first type of Mystic Art you can pull off is very easy, and all you have to do is hold in 2 of the art face buttons while performing an art, and once the animation triggers, you'll unleash a Mystic Art. This is going to consume the rest of your over limit gauge, but it's going to do a lot of damage. Now, the second way to perform another Mystic Art is a little more difficult. You have to successfully perform 5 consecutive art abilities that are not repeated, and then hold in 2 art buttons till the animation triggers. Well, there you have it. There's my tips and tricks for Tales of Arise. This is obviously only scratching the surface, so definitely let everyone know down in the comments what tips and tricks you'd like to have known earlier. Just please don't share any story spoilers. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more JRPG and Tales of Arise content. And until then, I'll see you all next time.